S.T.A.L.K.E R 2 was a huge hit at Gamescom this year, with many people trying out the updated demo and a lot of fresh information being revealed through interviews and even a brand new trailer. Hello Stalkers and welcome to the Anomalous Dugout. It's time to break it all down. August 22nd marked the second day of Gamescom and the 16th anniversary of the release of S.T.A.L.K.E R Clear Sky. For the occasion, GSC posted a special message. The southeastern border of the zone is a forsaken land of bugs and vapors, where time itself seems to have halted. Now the swamps teem with mutants in a realm of delusion, where the line between reality and nightmare blurs. Rare expeditions venture into this desolate place, and only a few have returned to tell tales of a distant hamlet beyond unfordable psi fields, and they vow to never go back. On August 22, 2008, stalkers witnessed the journey of a mercenary who awoke from an emission at the Clear Sky Base, hidden amidst a raging faction war and renegades infesting the swamps on its far edge. Scar became one of the legends, but the culmination of his path seems to be only just the beginning. The post described the current state of the swamps, teased the return of our beloved Scar, and was accompanied by a screenshot of the abandoned Clear Sky Base. The place has not changed much. We can see the entrance of the basement where Skif will meet Faust, as well as the fifth and last psi beacon that was missing from the developer deep dive. Later on the same day, IGN interviewed Yevgen Grigorovich and Yevhen Kulik, respectively CEO, game director, and technical producer at GSC Game World. They discussed some aspects of the game and most importantly, talked about a new trailer. Said trailer dropped on IGN's channel a bit later, then followed by the official version on GSC's channel. From the get-go we get the amazing news. Scar is alive and featured in Heart of Chernobyl. Of course, Scar's look and personality have been updated and refined to make him a more interesting character. I'll talk more about all the details later. For now, let's take a look at every scene from the trailer.
A good man is always on time for lunch.
Who said I'm a good man?
Richter, and the guys from the detention center. And me, Scar.
Here it seems Skif meets Scar for the first time, the latter telling him that Richter, along with the guys from the detention center, vouched for him. This detention center is currently unknown to us. Probably it will be a location where the player helped out some people. My theory is that Skif will assist the prisoners held by the ward to escape. Then we see the brainwashing room from the ending scene of Clear Sky. This is where S.T.A.L.K.E R ended up and was brainwashed to become a marked agent, tasked with killing the S.T.A.L.K.E himself. The corridor is still filled with bodies, only we can see they now have decayed. Most likely they remained here for a long time. The scene includes regular stalkers, army soldiers, scientific personnel, and more surprisingly, Monolith members.
So you've seen an anomaly outside the zone.
That's why I'm here.
In the past, we theorized that an important event should be the cause of the beginning of the game. This is because, according to Dalin,
the zone has remained stable for years.
Indeed, the overall situation of the zone has not evolved much since Call of Pripyat. Of course, a lot of time has passed and some things have changed, like the strength and territories of various factions, for example. However, and contrary to popular belief, the zone did not expand. This is why seeing an anomaly outside the perimeter is a big deal. In my opinion, there could be two explanations for this phenomena. One, the zone has started to grow. And two, the S.T.A.L.K.E R's experiments have gone out of control. It might also be both. the first being a result of the second. Either way, it sounds like this rising problem is the reason Skif came to the zone in the first place, though the details of his motivations remain unknown. Then Skif enters a silo-shaped room which contains many of the pods utilized for the Secret X experiments. Such devices could be seen holding mutants in Lab X-18 and in another unknown complex in the very first S.T.A.L.K.E R 2 trailer. Here the facility appears to be empty, the pods devoid of corpses. Possibly all the monsters escaped. The large ventilator at the top of the shaft reminds me of the one seen in the World and Locations trailer.
I've heard the rumors, but never firsthand.
Moving on, Skif walks along a platform within a tunnel. Some sort of machinery stands in the middle of the gallery, which is difficult to identify. Personally, the whole thing reminds me a lot of an early metro system, or at least some sort of underground transportation system. It was suggested that many of the secret bunkers and laboratories might all be connected via a large network of underground tunnels. In fact, this idea is somewhat represented in Call of Pripyat within the Underpass, in which we witnessed roads, rails, and even a train station hidden underneath Jupiter and the Ghost City.
And I've got a funny feeling there's more trouble to come.
Speaking of which, we see the school from Pripyat, decorated with a macabre ensemble of dead bodies. During the developer deep dive, Dmitry and Ashka mentioned the contrast between buildings made for children, such as the school and kindergarten, and terrible displays of mutilated corpses set up by the Monolith faction. It seems this is the Fanatics' way of marking their territory, and they must have occupied this school building at some point.
Jesus.
Then again, Skif finds himself in the brainwashing corridor. Most likely the S.T.A.L.K.E R program was abandoned following the destruction of the sea consciousness by Strelok, and all the S.T.A.L.K.E.R.s meant to be turned into agents, once barely alive, were left here to rot for all these years. Let's hear what S.T.A.L.K.E.R has to say about it.
This is the dark side of the zone. But there's another. The shining side. It's here all around us, but we cannot see it. I wonder what's out there. Eternal Spring? The Klondike of Artifacts? A new home? Or our heart's desires?
Every S.T.A.L.K.E.R knows that the zone can be both a terrible and beautiful place. It is a land of tragedy, filled with death and suffering. Yet it also is a land of opportunities, hope, and freedom. According to S.T.A.L.K.E.R, the secret experiments, the brainwashing, the lies, they represent the dark side of the zone. The trailer depicts it with a bleak shot of the Duga radar with a crashed helicopter under the rain. It seems the building here is the same where the Gauss gun scene took place back in the E3 2021 trailer. Despite the dangerous nature of the zone, S.T.A.L.K.E.R believes it also has a shining side, which needs to be revealed. At this moment we are presented with a pretty shot of a peculiar building with a large sphere-shaped object on top, most likely an isolated generator, possibly a prototype. Furthermore, the facade is one of these beautiful Soviet murals, only this one is purely fictional. The slogan says, "Human, Time, Energy," and underneath a strange equation is written. I'm not going to dive too deep into the science here, but we tried to find a real equation with similar parameters. There are some correlations with famous equations from the fields of thermodynamics, electromagnetics, and quantum physics, but no exact match. So I believe this is a made-up equation related to the study of psi waves. In the universe of S.T.A.L.K.E.R, the letter psi is used to describe psi fields, and the formulation with the square of an absolute value is reminiscent of field intensity calculations based on the wave's amplitude. Therefore, I am quite certain that the term psi is the amplitude of a psi field, measured with the unit psi-A as shown in one of the documents from the ARG. If that's the case, then the whole equation is used to calculate the psi field's intensity, although we still have no clear indication as to what the terms W and V could exactly mean. If we now focus on the surroundings, it looks like the building is part of a military complex, with large walls and sentry towers nearby. This is actually a location featured in the IGN gameplay we will take a look at later in the video. In the distance we spot a factory chimney with a characteristic shape. This is either part of the boiler area from the Bolts and Bullets trailer, which is located close to Zalissya, or it belongs to the Agroprom factory. Furthermore, we notice the perimeter wall that's been opened. With these elements, I think the scene is taking place in this general area of the map, looking towards the setting sun in the southwest. SCAR's conviction is that the shining side of the zone is always present, although hidden. Here we see Skif inside a large anomalous field, echo detector and suppressed PMM in hand. The anomalies are obviously of gravitational nature, as they have deformed the rocks and even lift some stones in a pretty cool manner. In the distance, a tall antenna can be seen. I think it's the same antenna on top of this building seen in the World on Locations trailer, which I bet will be a very important place in the game. Then SCAR mentioned the idea of eternal spring. I think this could be related to the fact seasons and weather do not work properly in the zone, and some locations may be locked in a state where plants always bloom like it is a spring season. This is exactly what is shown here, a beautiful field full of flowers and butterflies, reminiscent of the red poppy field. In which case, it may very well be an anomaly, some kind of illusion, to trick the mind into imagining a pretty scenery when in fact you are walking right into a deadly trap. Well, maybe I'm too pessimistic. We'll see when the time comes. SCAR goes on about the Klondike of Artifacts, one of the legends of the zone. The word Klondike is sometimes used to refer to a place with an abundance of riches, in memory of the gold rush towards the Klondike River during the late 1890s. In the zone, the Klondike of Artifacts is a place of legends, where a large quantity of artifacts would simply lay there for easy pickup, pretty much a giant field filled with artifacts, although nobody ever managed to find it. It is interesting to point out that the zone contains both true and untrue legends. For example, the tale of the Oasis turned out to be mostly correct, while the story of the Monolith Crystal was only a scheme, a fabrication. So who's to say we won't be able to find the Klondike of Artifacts in heart of Chernobyl? In the scene, Skif walks towards a fortified compound that is currently unknown to us. Once again, the tower is fitted with an antenna, very likely connected to the Psi experiments. Either this is an old base built before the creation of the anomalous zone, or a new facility established by the S.T.A.L.K.E R. Another detail is the sight equipped on the AR-416, a configuration we had not seen yet. Next up, SCAR talks about the zone possibly becoming a new home. It is true that a lot of stalkers come here to escape the outside world, thus finding a new life in the zone. These words are illustrated by a nice view of the windmill we had already seen from another angle in an earlier screenshot. The mill is located at the edge of Zalissya village. The settlement features a large metallic tower, to which the balloon is attached. This means it is not a blimp nor an airship, but rather an aerostat. A little known fact is that such a contraption was used during the cleanup of the real-life Chernobyl disaster. The balloon, nicknamed Chandelier by the liquidators, was mainly utilized to provide adequate lighting of the site during nighttime operations. On the left, some guard towers can be seen, possibly from the military base we took a look at earlier. Lastly, on the horizon we spot the same chimney once again, along with the satellite dish. The latter reminds me of the round antennas located at the power plant in Shadow of Chernobyl, although this one is much further from the center of the zone. Scar continues his monologue, stating that the shining side of the zone may reveal our heart's desires. This is kinda similar to the concept of the Wish Granter, that is able to see through us and know our deepest desires even if we try to hide it. At this moment, Skif stands in the middle of the night, only lit up by what looks like a new type of floating chemical anomaly. The idea of chemical poltergeists was also thrown in, but it does not seem to fit here. Either way, we can notice that the night is very dark, unlike in some of the footage seen at Gamescom. Some people raised concerns about the nights being too bright, but I think this will actually depend on the location, surrounding light sources, and possibly even on the moon itself. I'm pretty sure sometimes it will be brighter, other times it will be darker. We will know for sure on release. Scar finished his monologue.
We want the Shining Zone to reveal itself.
We? Who's we? I assume it's Scar and his followers, two of which can be seen chilling behind him. They wear a suit with brand new colors never seen before, meaning they must be from a new faction. And guess which new faction we know about but have not yet seen? That's right, Problesk, the group from the ARG. In case you have no idea what I'm talking about, I suggest watching my video about the S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2 ARG, the lore of which has recently been confirmed to still be relevant, by the way. The last scene from the trailer consolidates the theory of Problesk even more.
Oh, shit's gonna go down at the Institute. Ha.
In the ARG, the goal of Problesk was to oppose the Ward and the Circa, attacking the patrols, disturbing the Institute's research, exposing their secrets and lies, etc. Their behavior was very similar to how Scar reacted here. Due to these elements, we had quickly figured out that the group seeking for the shining side of the zone was Problesk. Sure enough, GSC confirmed it is the case when they posted their own version of the trailer. I quote, "A man who once survived the emissions, turned the tides of the faction wars, and witnessed the rise of Clear Sky. Now he stands nearly alone against the oppression of free stalkers. Could there ever be a better guide to the shining side of the zone, where eternal spring and a new home await us? The chance to ignite the spark is near." The newsletters was worded a bit differently. Once a mercenary, then a man who turned the tides of the faction wars and witnessed the clear sky, one of the legends, and now a leader, guiding stalkers against the oppression of Circa and the Wards. Will you help the spark light the path out of the dark side? From this, it is pretty clear that Scar will be the leader of Spark, the official English translation for the Problesk faction. Their goal is to fight against the Circa and the Ward, who represent the dark side of the zone, as well as search for a way to reveal the Shining Zone to all the stalkers. It should be noted that the Ukrainian name of the group is Iskra. In Call of Pripyat, if the player helps TOPAZ squad properly, They would eventually form the Iskra Scientific Research Investigation Team. Perhaps the idea of the Spark faction originated from there, and Topal is actually an important character. My theory is that Topal and his men, as scientific personnel, were forced to work for the S.T.A.L.K.E R, and came to realize how evil and twisted the organization actually is. Thus, they decided to go rogue and try to derail the Institute's plans. Alright, now that we went over the whole trailer, it's time to focus back on S.T.A.L.K.E R himself. A lot of people pointed out that he does not seem to be the same person as before. In this trailer, S.T.A.L.K.E R showcased a wide range of emotions, jovial at first, then serious, philosophical even, and finally a bit comedic. Meanwhile, the S.T.A.L.K.E R from Clear Sky was calm, focused, a man of few words who gets to the point to get the job done. However, I think it is a bit too early to compare the two, because we have not seen a lot about the new S.T.A.L.K.E R yet. Moreover, his behavior will depend on the current situation, much like any other human being. If you think about it, in Clear Sky, S.T.A.L.K.E R was having a pretty bad day. He woke up from surviving 2 missions, then was told that the zone could go mad at any moment and that only him could help to prevent a huge disaster. On top of that, he had no choice but to comply since his nervous system was about to burn out. Or at least that's what Lebedev wanted him to believe. Under such circumstances, it seems logical that S.T.A.L.K.E R would be especially grumpy. In S.T.A.L.K.E R 2, the context, although not entirely known, is probably quite different. Besides, the old S.T.A.L.K.E.R had less of a personality because he was the protagonist. The player was meant to give him the behavior he or her wanted, even being able to choose which faction S.T.A.L.K.E.R would side with. Regardless, I do agree that S.T.A.L.K.E.R now has a bit of a crazy side, possibly the result of his psyche being affected by the multiple emissions he survived, as well as the brainwashing. Indeed, we don't know how S.T.A.L.K.E.R lived his fate at the end of Clear Sky. Did he simply survive the blowout and wake up a bit later? Was he taken into the brainwashing room just like Strelok but managed to break free? Or did he actually go through the brainwashing process and became a marked agent? According to an interesting theory, S.T.A.L.K.E.R is still under the influence of said brainwashing and trying to fulfill the mission given to him as an agent, which would be tied to revealing the Shining Zone. But enough theories for now. If you want more, go check out my old video about S.T.A.L.K.E.R's fate, see if it still holds up after this new reveal. Now it's time to take a look at the exclusive footage published by IGN on the first day of Gamescom, accompanied by the live commentary of Yevgen Grigorovich. This gameplay is taken from the demo that was available to the public, which is actually a build of the very beginning of the game. Players got the opening cutscene and jumped straight into Skif's feet to enter the zone. I know some of you don't want to be spoiled too much and would like to experience this for themselves on release. Therefore, I will not explain all the story details related to the beginning of the game, and focus more on the gameplay aspects demonstrated here. The basic rundown is that Skif is carried to the entrance of the zone in the back of Herman's truck, and he sneaks inside the perimeter with the TOPAZ device under the cover of darkness. The objective is to use the TOPAZ in a few key locations. That's all I'm gonna reveal for now. The first scene showcases the first time when Skif has to set up the TOPAZ. Yevgen described the apparatus as a scanner that can recharge an artifact placed inside of it, an action that could bring Skif a lot of money. In the news section of the official website, we can read the following about artifacts. These things tarnish and become nearly useless on the mainland, but inside the perimeter, artifacts are able to enhance the mere physiology of a human being, and with a smart approach, make a stalker as tenacious as some of the local mutants. This seems to indicate that artifacts eventually lose their power when outside of the zone, which may explain the need for a device like the TOPAZ to recharge them. As it triggers, we can see the electrical anomalies are spawned, and the release is so powerful that it destroys a support beam for the tower that ends up crashing down on the wall. Then the player picks up the TOPAZ again, carefully avoids the electrodes, and heads towards the breach in the wall. It turns out that 3 bandits camping on the other side were alerted by the noise and come to fight with the Skif. We could see the entire firefight, which feels a lot like in the previous games. Enemies communicate and push together, they throw grenades when the player hides in cover, and their bullets hurt a lot if you are not careful. After they've been dealt with, we witness the looting process, once again similar to the OG games. Notice how Skif was able to push one of the corpses by walking towards it. Here's the looting screen, quite standard and as we expected, not much to see here. When weapons are on the ground, there is an option to unload them rather than pick it up and unload it in the inventory. Same thing for consumables, you can directly consume them. The good old bandit armor was showcased. We can see the bandits were roasting a rat. Rats confirmed? The camp also had 2 ammo boxes to be opened with the knife. Yevgen explained that looting and managing ammunition will be very important in the game, as if you are not careful enough you may quickly run out of supplies and bullets and find yourself in a dire position. He also mentioned that exploration will not only reward the player with hidden items and stashes, but will also be made interesting simply for the fact that each area is filled with nice details and a background story. Basically, the game will use a lot of environmental storytelling, just like in the original trilogy. Afterwards, we see the player infiltrating a military base, the same one where the building with the generator on the roof is located. We see how glass can be broken with the knife and the ledge jumped over. Skif quickly engages with the IPSF soldiers who respond in force, just as you would expect. The AI seems quite smart, enemies get to cover and look for flanking positions. Yevgen also talked about stealth mechanics. He said that it will come down to sneaking on the enemy to take a better position before the fight breaks out. So no full stealth walkthroughs where you can bypass everybody by being invisible. Stalkers are not dumb and they will see you eventually. Overall, the weapons seem to feel punchy, the enemies appear reactive, and the combat looks challenging enough, just like it used to be. I love how the player killed the guard on the tower with a grenade and his weapon fell all the way down. Then we see Skif getting up at a campfire, indicating that sitting down to rest in such places will be a feature. This is the same campfire seen in this part of the World and Locations trailer, located at the Zalissya village. We were briefly shown the menu for upgrading equipment, which is done inside the PDA when standing close enough to a technician. The demonstration is made on the AKM-74U. We can see multiple parts of the weapon that can be tinkered with, like the barrel, gourd and body. Here the body is selected and a few possible upgrades appear. The player chooses the scope mount upgrade. Its description says, allows the user to attach a range of scopes to the weapon. This modification costs 500, that is paid instantly. After buying, the player can equip the gun with the collimator sight. He then walks across a few neutral stalkers, showcasing an interaction where the NPC asks Skif to put his weapon down if he wants to talk. Nothing new compared to the previous games, but it's nice to see it coming back. We also saw the weapon wheel, which reminds me, I promised to take a look at all the weapons revealed so far and forgot to do it in the previous video. Well, here goes. Pistols, PMM, UDP Compact, APSB, and some kind of revolver. SMGs, Bouquet S2, Viper 5, Ingrab Mag 10, Zuber 19, and Chris Vector. Shotguns, Boomstick, TOPAZ 34, M860 Cracker, the Saiga, SPSA-14, and DP-12. Assault rifles, AKM-74U, AKM-74S, FORA-221, Vulcan M, AR-416, Korod, GP-37, SA Lavina, and probably the Thunder S14. Rifles, M14, Vintar BC, SVU MKS3, SVD M2, and the Remington 700. Finally, heavy weapons, the RPG-7, RP-74, and Gauss rifle. That's 32 guns out of 35. Place your bets on what the 3 remaining weapons will be. Moving on, the player uses the echo detector to hunt an artifact within a field of fruit punch anomalies. The object is the slug. It previously appeared only in Shadow of Chernobyl. Back then, artifacts were always visible and did not require a scanner to be found, so it seems this has fully been retconned. Right afterwards, we witness the encounter with a bloodsucker in front of a scientific bunker. The attack that throws Skif to the ground is showcased, along with the monster's ability to cloak. This reminds me of the time I fought a bloodsucker when I played the first demo last year. The creature runs around to trick you and is pretty tough to kill, offering a good challenge for most players, especially when you don't have the adequate weaponry to deal with it. We can notice this bloodsucker has a different appearance than those previously seen. This must be one of the subspecies variations only found in certain biomes of the zone. Then the player strolls around the river's shore, eventually finding a small stash. Meanwhile, Yevgen talked a bit about factions, quests, and locations. He explained that one playthrough won't be enough to see everything that the game has to offer. Moreover, the map is so huge and filled with details that even with his extensive knowledge of the game, he still gets surprised when exploring. In another interview, he further highlighted the replayability of the game, and stated that a completionist player like him could spend 150 hours on a single playthrough. Of course, your personal number will depend on your proficiency with the game as well as the type of player you are. In a previous interview from a few months ago, it was said that the game will have 4 endings. However, here Yevgen revealed that there are actually 3 endings. I wonder if there might be a secret ending. Well, we will come back to talk about this in the next video. Believe me. Wrapping up, in the last scene of the gameplay we saw a house with a barn. The door inscription features the perfect words to end it here. Good hunting, Stalker.